In September of 2003, some bones had been found out in the Castle Pines area.
The right and left clavicles are present, the sternum is present, left and right scapula. All left and right ribs are present, but fragmented.
Well, in every case when bones are found, law enforcement and the coroner's office both respond, and our first responsibility is to determine whether they are of forensic value, which basically means can they solve a recent day crime. From that is some very simple field evaluation of the bones, the age that they look, how long they've been in the ground, and if anything is in the dig area that actually looks like evidence or if it's been in the ground for a long time. What we found with these bones is they were discolored to the point that they had been in the ground for a very long time, possibly 100 years from a field evaluation standpoint.
A little bit of fabric. You see this black stuff that's kind of right on top of the bone there, right under that butt.
And at the time there was no other evidence along with them. So at that point it's a non-forensic value case. And we start by bringing in the state archaeologist.
The area where the bones were found near Castle Rock, Colorado, had been uncovered actually by utility trenching. They were building houses in this Castle Pines subdivision. The utility trench workers came through and actually cut through and kicked up some of the lower long bones, some of the leg bones. And then that's when the coroner and our office was called in.
The grave was clearly threatened, not to mention already partially disturbed, and so it was clear that excavation of the remains were required in this instance.
What we found in general was a pioneer burial, the impression of a coffin with a little bit of wood fragments, some square-cut nails, the remains of the individual, mostly skeletal. There were a few what were called prosser buttons, just little white buttons that were part of probably a burial garment. There was a little bit of fabric, but it was so decomposed that we could not recover any really for analysis.
All of these things are consistent with a female individual. Features of the skull also are consistent with a female individual, though there's very few that you can see. But the overall robusticity of the skull, lack of raised muscle attachments, the smoothness, this feature here, which is a frontal boss, is also consistent with a female individual.
We had a lot of help from an archivist down at Douglas County Library, Joanna Harden. She really helped us in trying to trace down an individual if we could find one.
There's no brow ridges on it. No brow ridge at all.
So you think it's a woman?
I think it's a woman.
We did extensive research at the county assessor's office, the clerk and recorder's office, as well as all the early censuses that were taken in that part of the state.
And this is not pathological. But indicative of the individual's lifestyle. This is a very raised muscle attachment here, and the muscles that are involved in walking. So it just indicates overall physical fitness of this individual, highly active lifestyle, probably doing a lot of walking.
What was that person like? She may have been a worker or a day laborer. By 1859, the area around where the burial was located was very active in terms of lumber milling as well as mining operations for the rhyolite, which is found just above Castle Rock now. Maybe she was just a traveler, traveling on the road and suddenly died. It was a very hard life. There probably wasn't a lot of resources. The whole image of the kind of the Wild West was probably very true, especially at the very early part of Douglas County's history.
The coroner and other officials in Douglas County and local historians, such as Joanna Harden and others, while they were not able to find an identity for her, they were interested in a local reburial, and so the disposition was handled through Douglas County channels.
The remains were laid again to rest on June 19th of 2005 in the Pioneer Cemetery near Sedalia.
Community in Douglas County is a very unique group of people I found. And this particular case, I believe it was the Indian Creek Schoolhouse, Also had a pioneer cemetery, which is in their care and their renovation, and they had space where they figured it was a pioneer lady. They'd like the opportunity to bury her with other pioneers, and this was a perfect place for them.
And while we don't know her name or where she came from, we do know that she was one of God's children.
We need to remember the people that have gone before us. They've laid the foundation for what we enjoy today.
It was a nice ending to a very long story for this woman who died without much recognition, or the recognition suddenly just sort of disappeared. So to actually kind of have a nice ending to it was, I think, very, very, very great.